And recording has started. Thanks everyone for coming to our second show and tell. A lot's happened in the last couple of weeks, even with having a short working week this week. Just tell you a little bit, I'll remind you of the story so far. At our last show and tell, which is available on the Hackett YouTube channel, we discussed what a platform API is. So for something that provides data in a generic format, reusable by multiple services, just trying to template things as much as we can. We talked about what the work that we were doing for the resident contact information API and our chosen architecture. But that's really just the foundations of what will be a huge project. So I will hand over to Rashmi to talk about what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks.
Yes, so over the last few weeks, we've been concentrating on Mosaic data set only because this is something that we have never explored before as a team. And I thought this will be the best one to start with, especially about the data around NHS number, personal contact details, so on. Can you go next, please? Yeah. So what have we done so far on the Mosaic platform API? So we have created a repo. When I say created a repo, just we have made sure that we are following the industry standard, and we have done a lot of work on the base API as well, which is a foundation for all the repos, for all the projects going forward, and all the APIs basically. Then we created a Postgres database for the migrated data. As I said before, in the last show and tell, all our endpoints will be reading from the cloud database instead of on-prem. Only if the reason for those ones are high availability, high performance, durability, scalability, and security. And also we are not dependent on on-prem database maintenance windows and all. This means our APIs will always be 99.9999 percentage available, which is a good one, and that's the one we are targeting for. We successfully migrated data via DMS, so we have taken the chunk from the Mosaic test database into a Postgres one, which I'm sure Mirella will cover in detail. I will leave that part for her to talk about more. How did we do that? And we built a API. We have two endpoints, get endpoints, one for listing all the records and viewing individual records. Well done on that. So yeah, so I hand over to Mirella, please.
Thank you, Rashmi, and hello, everyone. So during the last 2 weeks, we looked into different migration options for Mosaic. We previously had set up AWS DMS using a SQL feature called CDC, Change Data Capture, but unfortunately, we found out that does not work with our Mosaic database, as CDC is only supported on Enterprise and Developer SQL editions, while our Mosaic on-premises database is a standard edition. So once we found out that's not going to work, we had to do an investigation into alternative ways of migrating our data. We found out that DMS supports another SQL feature for replication called MS Replication, Microsoft Replication. So the way this feature works is it makes use of transactional logs. It creates a distribution database, and each time there is an insert, update, or delete, it will add a record to this distribution database, and DMS would then pick up that new record in the distribution database and migrate it to our cloud mirror database. MS Replication is available on all SQL editions and works only on tables that have primary keys. Luckily, Mosaic is one of those databases with tables with primary keys, so we decided that we have to give it a go, as it seemed like it was going to work for us. And it did. In the end, we actually achieved a POC. We successfully migrated data from Mosaic into our cloud database in a continuous manner. So we are capturing updates, inserts, and deletes. I want to quickly give a shout out to app support and Ninat. Thank you for assisting with any issues I had during the process of setting up the underlying on-premises database, as it was a new process. The process of setting up MS Replication, however, is now documented, so we can easily replicate it with any other database. And yeah, we're continuously migrating data from Mosaic, so that was a big win for us. I pass over to Louise now.
Thanks. As part of working on DMS migrations, one thing that we're going to need to be able to do is access the RDS databases that we create and make sure that they are working correctly and have the data that they need, of course. So while we need to be able to access that data, it's really important to keep it secure from anybody else. So what we've done is set up a Bastion host as part of several steps of authentication, including multi-factor authentication and the AWS best practices like EC2 Instance Connect, which involve using a ephemeral public key in order to be able to SSH into Bastion. And all of this authentication is managed using roles through IAM, which is kind of standard for the team and what Hackney is used to, and is generally a good idea. So essentially, we've got a safe way to access the databases in RDS in order to check that they're working correctly and set up correctly, while keeping them safe, of course, from anybody else. As part of this, we validated the approach with the security team. Keith and Mac were really helpful in giving feedback on our approach. So yeah, a few more things to implement, but yeah, really pleased.
If anyone wants to know more about the work that we did on the Bastion host, there's also a playback recorded on G+, which I posted last week. If anyone is really interested in knowing more. Next up, Bucky.
Hello. Yeah, so the Mosaic API is built following the API playbook standard. The API playbook standard helps define design patterns or architecture. So the code we write has to follow the Hackney API playbook standard. The API currently is implemented, will be implemented as a AWS Lambda function. So normally we have the APIs running as applications, but this new API, Mosaic API, is going to be implemented as a Lambda function. I think AWS Lambda function was chosen as it was a cost-effective way or option for hosting APIs on AWS. The development language is C#. C# was chosen as a skill set that's common amongst Hackett developers. The API currently has 2 endpoints, access through HTTP GET. One endpoint can accept request parameters such as Mosaic ID, postcode, or address if you want to search using parameters. The response format is a JSON object, and the full development API can be viewed at the URL on Swagger Hub. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So that's been the bulk of the work that the team has done over the last 2 weeks, but there are some other things that we've done as well. Rashmi, would you like to talk about Academy? Sorry, Mirella will talk about Academy.
Yep. So yeah, the other data source we looked into is Academy. Academy uses Ingress as an underlying data source. So, and unfortunately, Ingress is a database technology that we are not really familiar with. So Matt and Ben were initially spending some time with Chris understanding how to connect to it. It's not as straightforward as connecting to a SQL server, so we had to gain some knowledge there. Then we looked into how the current SQL reporting server for Academy is migrating data out of Ingress. So they're using an SSIS package, which essentially is a nightly process. It will take a data dump, all of the data in Academy, and it will insert into the SQL database by first truncating the tables. We wanted to understand how that works and wanted to understand whether that will be an approach we can replicate on our own. The team agreed that we want to create our own SQL mirror and not use the reporting server, as we are planning to run different processes against it, and we did not want to affect in any way the reporting server, which other applications heavily rely on. So after agreeing on that, we also decided we want to try to improve the existing process of migrating data. Ideally, what we want to achieve is a continuous migration. So do an initial data dump of the data in Academy into our SQL mirror, and then capture continuous updates. So any updates, new updates to records, inserts and deletes, rather than taking all data and reinserting it in there. We realized, however, that will be quite a major task because the Ingress database, the tables do not have any date stamps, which means we do not know when a record has been modified. And Ingress is not a technology that has any replication feature like a normal SQL database. So we had to look into alternatives. We have found a few possible ways, but they will be quite big implementation tasks. So what we decided to do as a plan going ahead is to do a one-off data migration from the existing SQL Server into a Postgres cloud database using DMS. In that way, we're going to have a copy of the database in cloud, so we can build our APIs against it and expose the data. And we also found that the data does not change that often, so we could do that as a temporary solution. And in the meantime, in parallel, we're going to start looking into testing out ways of how to achieve that more continuous migration without blocking the API development. I pass over back to Rashmi.
Great, thank you, Mirella. So there's few other things that we have also started looking at, especially with vulnerability and the work around what data and insight team have been working on for the COVID. So I would like to highlight two of those services. One is for I Need Health form and NHS Shield data that we get from gov.uk. We know that we know I Need Health form very well because it was built in the Hack IT, and we know everything about the existing API, how the data comes in, what are the flows, or what are the things involved. However, to understand NHS Shield data, we didn't know much about it. It's more complex and it's quite manual, to be honest. So we had a really good session with Liz last Friday about to understand how do we go about it, and we have learned a lot. And looks like data and insight team have really worked very hard on about learning the vulnerabilities in Click. And to be honest, from that step, we don't want to replicate it, but we want to reuse it, whatever it's been developed, and probably improve if we can. But I'm sure we'll find out more as we start stepping into it. We have few meetings arranged with the data and insight team, and we'll be working very closely on that particular on that particular data set. So yeah, this is something that we have highlighted where as a part of our retro, that we really need to have a roadmap, especially because we are dealing with 26 different data sources only on the customer, on the people data. So it is developing, but as Darren mentioned in the slide, it is dynamic like a snack nav. It is true, to be honest. We have started working on it, and we know where our next priorities are. There's quite a lot of work to be done, but we have made a start, and also it will give a really good view for whoever are interested into seeing the high level roadmap. What are the next sources that we'll be considering? I really want to mention something important that we have also covered as a part of our sprint for last 2 weeks is VPN connection issue. That was the biggest mystery, and without that, obviously, this project will not be able to survive a lot because most of our data sets are on-prem. And thanks to the guys who have helped us, especially I would like to name Selwyn, Matt, Camille, Kate, and Edu, who helped us to resolve that mystery. We still don't know the full answer, but we think that the VPN tunnel is up and running and is working as expected. So we can pull the data out from the on-prem without having any issues, and is following the the standards which AWS mentioned. And not to forget, we have been validating every step, whatever we are taking, though it's a baby step, but we are making sure that we are validating with AWS expert Manish, who's a solution architect, and other team members from different areas. Thank you.
So that's been our work over the last couple of weeks. What questions do people have? Actually, I can see that there's a couple here in the chat. Selwyn, do you want to ask that out loud? Not really.
Yes, sorry. I was just curious whether or not the flow of data, if it's just at the moment from on-prem to the cloud, and if there's any, I think Liz had a follow-on to that.
Yeah.
If there's any scope to have sync back as well.
Yes. So to start with, we started a journey to get the data first out from on-prem to cloud. Obviously, it's there in our pipeline to make sure, as I said in the last show and tell, we do have plans to update it. But however, that's a bigger journey. And as you know, Selvin, in housing data in the cloud, we know what are the use cases that we would like to follow on there, and what are the things that we would like to improve. So we are going to take that model and build on it. But however, we are not there yet. We have a lot of steps that we would like to take first, and then start building on the update and put endpoints before we step on that one. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
Liz, does that answer your question, or would you like to follow up?
Yeah, it kind of does. I guess I was just trying to understand what. So I think it sounds like you've made great progress. I'm just trying to understand what the application front end will look like, and it sounds like what you're saying at the moment is the most important thing is for that to be able to read the most current information about sort of a resident's vulnerability. But just thinking about how and where we might use what people are telling us in how whatever that use case is, whatever people tell us might be really valuable to go back into Mosaic or into other systems. So I was just trying to understand, is that use case clearly defined in terms of what the application, the sort of front end application will be, and then just kind of ambition for how we might be able to make use of that data in future.
Mm. So we are, as we mentioned before, we are making sure that whatever data set we are working, we have clear use case user needs around it. So I understand our audience are mostly developers. So our job is to present the data. The front end will change, and it depends upon what information they want to do it. The main outlook will be the main API that will be collating all these different data sources, information JSONs into one they will be providing, and they can pull out the information what they want to present on the front end. So for example, if I say about the COVID one of the use cases that we would like to cover, and that's been mentioned by Matthew, is that people who have registered on NHS Shield data but not on INH form, we would like to call them up and find out if they are. So probably the front end will be based on it, and once we call up those users, we'll be able to register them and have a relevant front end developed from those stream. Did I make sense, or do you need here? Yeah.
And do we know, is that a thing that is kind of planned as part of this work, or is that a separate?
So that for the next planning session, we would like to explore, as I said before, we would like to explore that those data sets and see if we can reuse the work which you have already done by working closely with Daro and Liz on that. And especially, we would like to explore the vulnerability data set, because I know it's also useful for housing needs project as well. So I think we should start analyzing it, especially because this project came into existence, the whole the concept changed because of COVID. So we would like to explore that one.
Yeah, cool.
Next question is from Tom. Tom, do you want to read that out for people and for the recording?
Sure. Sorry, my mic's been a bit unreliable. It was just do those planned future iterations include defining and implementing information retention? Is there a point past which that gets more difficult technically than it already is? So is there a best point to start looking at how that's achievable technically?
If I remember correctly, Mirella did ask about the because Gabriel did mention about it, about how do we implement retention, especially around Mosaic, and we had a conversation on that. But sorry, we didn't follow up on that. But yeah, definitely it's there in our plan. We need to make sure that we have retention in place, especially for example, Mosaic. If they have already have retentions in place, we would like to have those on our new Postgres database as well. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No. And I think my response to that question was probably more complicated than any of us would really like. It's just I suppose I'm thinking about if there is a point in the technical development past which it gets more difficult to consider how we do that technically.
Yes.
Is there a point of no return, or is it fairly fluid at the moment?
Well, we are in the initial start of our journey, so we would like to explore that. I think it will start developing once we start dwelling into it, start exploring that option.
Lovely. All right. Cool. That's great.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got further questions for us? If not, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time and your attention. And we'll hope to see you again in 2 weeks at the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.